Hey, it's Jeff Stockton again, and I'm wearing the same shirt because it's the same day. And today, we're right before the 4th of July break, and there's a whole lot of cancellations at work. Most of my students are gone today, so I've got a lot of free time on my hands. I figured I'd take the opportunity to throw in another installment. So what I want to get into now, we've talked about the altered scale and the overtone scale, the two very common scales for soloing over dominant chords. I want to talk about some of the other ones that we also use. I guess I'll start from the simplest of those, which would be the whole tone scale. So I'm going to start off again at a G7 chord, so we're on the 5 in the key of C now. Now this whole tone scale, starting from G, it's all whole steps. You probably already know that. So it's got a really floaty, another really floaty, dreamlike sounding scale, even more so than the overtone dominant or the Lydian dominant, Lydian flat 7. Commercially, you hear this used in old sitcoms where they kind of have a flashback to a previous episode, and they're like, "Joey, do you remember that one time when Johnny sawed off his arm?" And they're like, and they all think back to it. That's a really common sort of application of that scale. In jazz, it gets used over these dominant chords. Certain dominant chords it's going to work with. Again, this is a scale that's not going to work if you're voicing a fifth in your dominant chord. It's going to have a big clash. It's going to sound like something's not quite right. So again, leave fifths out of most of your chord voicings, especially your dominant chords, because they're a hindrance on your options, your future options, or not even your future options, but just the options of whoever's soloing. So whoever you're playing with too, if they don't know that already, tell them, leave those fifths out, and I can do much cooler stuff. So this whole tone scale, if I'm thinking of it in terms of G7, I've got a root note, a second, a third, sharp 4, sharp 11, sharp 5 or flat 13, and a flat 7. So you want to think about which notes you have as they relate to G7, because then you can know which G7 chords, or which dominant chords in general, are going to fit the whole tone scale. And the rule of thumb is pretty simple. Anything with a natural 9 and an altered 5. And remember, your altered 5 can also be thought of as, if it's a flat 5, it's a sharp 11. If it's a sharp 5, it's a flat 13. So it could be a fifthless voicing that's got natural 9 and a flat 13. That's the same as sharp 5, flat 13. That's just one of the goofy kinds of things about music. There's nothing much we can do to fix that. So let's say, okay, here's flat 7, third, flat 13, or sharp 5, and a 9. Sounds kind of crazy. Here's the cool thing though, is if I'm using this voicing, I can move this voicing around in whole steps, and it's still going to have the same chordal function. That G bass note could hang in there the whole time. Let me do an A bass note, which will give us the same chords, since A is a whole step away. It sounds absolutely nuts, but it's a common sound in jazz. So with the whole tone scale, I'd say, try and work out your basic scale patterns, like the skipping patterns. Whoops. Nope. Looks like I've got something to practice there. Work out those kinds of patterns, 4-note pattern. those types of patterns on any scale you learn, but don't, use those patterns extensively when you solo. Just little bits of them here and there. Don't use them past the point where the listener is caught on that it's a pattern, because then it's, hey, why don't you be creative, So that's the whole tone scale. And remember, you can use it over anything with a natural 9 and an altered 5. By the way, there's only 2 whole tone scales. I guess I didn't mention that. There's 2 whole tone scales. There's basically C whole tone and F whole tone. And the notes that the C whole tone scale doesn't have, the F whole tone scale has. So that's another beautiful thing about it. And you know what? I'm not going to give up on you just yet for this lesson because, okay. Rhythm changes. If you don't already know stuff, search it. You'll find some lessons on the rhythm changes. The bridge in the rhythm changes is typically a 3-chord played as dominant. And for now I'm gonna use a E9 chord because I'm in the key of C, so that's my 3. And then A7 with a flat 13. And then a D9 chord and then a G7 with a flat 13. So each one of those dominant chords I just played is compatible to the whole tone scale. And it would be 2 measures of each of those. So like, and back into the rhythm change. That was a little sloppy, but the whole tone scale is fun to use over that because I've got my E9 chord here. I can use C whole tone because E's a couple whole steps away from C, so it's going to have the same notes. E whole tone would have the same 6 notes as C whole tone. Whoops. And then all I need to do when I switch to the A chord is keep doing what I'm doing, just move it 1 fret away, up or down. Doesn't matter, you're going to get to the other whole tone scale that way. And then when it's time to switch another 4th away to the D9, you can just move it another fret. You could move a fret back or another fret in either direction you moved. And then same thing for the G7. So basically I've got these, 2 whole tone scales bouncing back and forth. And all I'm doing is playing stuff in the whole tone shape, moving it a fret away, moving it another fret away, or another fret back, or whatever, each time the chord changes. So and it sounds totally outlandish, but at the same time it still fits together. As long as someone's not playing a bunch of natural 13s or flat 9s and stuff. So, and if you're playing with a keyboardist or another guitar player, you have to really pay close attention to which chords they're playing. And that's probably another lesson for the near future here is ways that you can go about learning how to really recognize the sounds of these different types of dominant chords. So that's the whole tone scale in a nutshell, a little more complete. Go ahead and check out the next one. The next one's going to be on the diminished scale. So thanks for watching. Keep practicing. Bye.